Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Candidates Forum for candidates for the San Bruno Park School Board Governing Board. This evening is sponsored by San Bruno Park School District and co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters. We're very pleased to be able to offer you this opportunity as voters to hear all the candidates and hear their views on various issues, and we're very happy that all the candidates were able to come this evening. Thank you very much. All the candidates have received a list of the rules for this evening, and as far as the audience is concerned, the same rules apply in that we will maintain the highest decorum and we'll all be on our very best behavior, but of course I know that won't be a problem. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for an opening statement, 1 minute to answer each question, and a 2-minute closing statement. We have drawn for opening order of remarks. Then we'll vary the order of answering questions and reverse the opening order when we get to the closing statements. I hope that you have all received cards for your questions, and if you have not, please raise your hand. The ushers will be happy to provide them for you, and pick up any questions you have when you are prepared. Just raise your hand and the ushers will come and pick them up. I would like to thank Jennifer Paponis of the school district who made all the arrangements for this evening. And I'd like to thank the league members who are here to help us this evening. Our timekeeper is Jean Johnson here in the first row, David Carey and Susie Ray, our ushers. And we have a student, Jenny Shields, helping us this evening also, earning community service hours. So again, we thank you very much for being here and participating. And with that, we will begin the candidates for their opening statements. Mr. Sanchez will begin.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity to provide a public discussion. In the first term of office as a governing board member, it's been a trying time for the district in terms of budget cuts to the public education, not only to our district but also to the state of California. Within the district from 2007, we've lost $4 to $5 million in revenue. And the district has had to do a number of creative ways of maintaining transparently the public education through the students that have gone through the K through 8 system that we're in the San Bruno Park School District. We've, in March 2010, Kevin Martinez and I and the governing board approved an approach of looking at using the one-time fund sales of Carl Sandburg, EC 17463-7, which allowed us to fund post-retirement benefits, which is a mandatory cost that we had to sustain for the district, and putting $3 million into an irrevocable trust, and that's been part of this process. We also use that money to refinance, build a new middle school. We need phase 2 to complete that, and we have now transferred the 6th grade to the middle school, which has been an important mission of the district, and so it becomes an important next step in terms of governance. And so in terms of education, with the transition to a K through 8 system, now with 6, 7, and 8, we're now facing another important area of reform, and that is public education. The state of California is the new funding model, which is called local control funding formula, where now we as this district get a sum of money and we have to be responsible for allocating it to the betterment of the education of the various students throughout the district. And so it becomes very important in this transition time to have a governance that will be able to, as a team, approach this in a very systematic way, and there's going to be a new accountability, because once we have the money, we have to allocate it. This can be specifically to those students that are in need, especially in our district, from foster youth to socioeconomically disadvantaged and English language learners. And so what I have done during this period of time is make sure that this is going to happen in the governance team that we have currently. And so I think this is the approach we need to have, members that are going to work toward this, and I feel that I'm part of the system that will accomplish this.
Thank you. Mr. Zelnick?
Good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and everybody that's here tonight and watching on TV. My name is Chuck Zelnick. I was elected to office back in the early 2000s for 6 years. I spent on this board. I will be the first one to tell you that I do not have children in this district, but that has never dampened my enthusiasm for quality education for all children. I have a 16-month-old grandson whose parents would like to live here in San Bruno, and I see this as a head start to help shape this school district in a more financially sound situation. When I was on the board, the state took money from us all the time. The reality is there's not been a board member for the last numerous years that hasn't had budget problems with the state funding model. But I believe that when I know for a fact when I was on the board, we didn't have years after years of deficit spending. I voted for contract raises for our employees, and we provided quality education with numerous electives in our middle school, junior high at that time. And so what I'd like to bring to this board and to the community is knowing the past, understanding the future and what it takes for parents today to put their kids through the system. What are they going to need when they get to the end of the line in high school? What foundation can we set now? And I would like to ask for your vote to allow me to share my experience, to work with the other members of the board that can deal with these situations. But this is, quite frankly, you can't do it by deficit spending. We have teachers that are taking furloughs now and a lot of other things that we'll talk about tonight. But I really want you to look at it as, can we mix a little bit of the old that has worked with a little bit of the new and be able to address this situation of deficit and get us back on the right track? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marinos?
Thank you for having me here tonight. My name's John Marinos, and I'm running for school board. And I have one child in 4th grade and another in 2nd grade, and I attended San Bruno schools myself. And I've attended school board meetings since my children started school, and I decided to run for school board because I believe it's time for me to step up or stop coming to school boards. I need to speak out. And as an outsider, it just seemed that the last few years were really frustrating for a lot of people involved, that our opinions and our comments weren't listened to. And even though we've had an increase in student enrollment because of the population shifts, we've lost many good families through the district because their voice has been unheard. And they left again because the process was just frustrating. So I just believe in open and honest communication, and we have big opportunities in front of us with Common Core and local control funding. And I'm hoping everyone gives me a chance to bring new life to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn?
Hello, everyone. My name is Patrick Flynn. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity in holding this forum. I'll start telling you a little bit about myself. I'm a proud father of 3 boys and lucky to have my wife, Noreen. I moved to San Bruno when I was 3. My parents were very involved in the local schools while I was growing up. They taught me how important it is to be involved in education. My mother, Elna Flynn, started her volunteer role at Portola School. They still honor my mother in Pacifica with a volunteer award in her name. I started as a PTA president at Portola School 12 years ago. I've been a member of Portola's PTA ever since. I currently belong to each PTA and feel that PTAs play a critical role in our children's education. I helped start the San Bruno Education Foundation on this day, October 10th in 2005. Happy birthday, Foundation. And still help them when I can. I was the president of the Education Foundation until I was appointed to the school board. I think that our school board could do a better job in our district. We need to embrace the community. We need more transparency in our district. We need better communication with our parents so we as a board can understand the priorities for educating our children. In my short time on the board, I have found issues at the roots of the board that need to be addressed. There are problems with communication, as John mentioned, that cause embarrassing moments. I have found respect is not mutual on our board. Our schools aren't treated the same throughout the district. I believe that policies are not being followed. We have Common Core standards, local control funding formula, and local control accountability plan to look forward to as well. These are just some of the challenges I hope to overcome in my next 4 years if I'm elected. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for all the volunteers and parents in the district that deserve the respect of the school board. I'm doing this because I think this district can really be great with a little bit of TLC and a lot of trust and cooperation. Vote for me, Patrick Flynn. I can do more for our children's education.
Thank you. Well, we already have a nice array of questions, and I will certainly try to get to every question. Occasionally, if there's more than one question on a topic, I will either put them together or choose one, just so we are able to cover a variety of topics. So just in case you don't hear the question as you wrote it, I do hope you'll be able to hear it as the topic of a question. We will begin with a question. We are right now in a closed school. Crestmore was closed to save an estimated $220,000 per year. However, the closing district budget in July showed a balance of nearly $4.9 million. Do you believe the closing of Crestmore was justified? We'll begin with Mr. Flynn.
Yes, I believe it was justified. It wasn't for the money that I believe that that it was justified. It was that there were so few local kids going to this school. I wouldn't have closed the school in the same way. I would have announced it ahead of time and asked the parents of the school, what can we as a district do for you? We're going to close the school. It needs to close because we have so many split classes. And, you know, how can we help with this closing? I really think that the way this closing was handled was poor. And I don't think it was for the money. I think it was because of the split classes.
Thank you. Mr. Marinos?
My children went to this school, so the school was obviously very important to me and very special. At the end of the day, the school, if it was going to be closed or wasn't going to be closed, the parents should have been involved. The superintendent should have spoken to the parents. That never happened. We went through a year and a half. The school was going to be closed. The school was going to be closed. One time it was about split classes. The other times it was about dollars. So we never got, at the end of the day, the answer was never given of why are we closing this school. But yes, if we had, and Pat and I spoke about this, so I'm sort of saying the same thing. If there would have been a conversation with the parents, I believe the parents are all rational. I've spoken to them. We could have come to an understanding. It will be better for everybody if this school is closed, but that never happened. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Zelnick?
Oh, I'm sorry. The thing about the closing of Crestmore, and I attended a few of the meetings, the reality was parents were told by a vote of the board that this school was going to stay open in the spring of the school year. No sooner did the next school year started, that they had already started to put plans into place to close the school. And so parents are just like at their wits' end, and the ones that I've communicated with were just like, why aren't we included in the conversation? And I know that there's a lot of people in the audience and probably a lot of people at home that have gone on committees, have sat on committees, participated, and it goes a totally different direction. I mean, the communications there, the parents were shorted on their input, and then they were blindsided with the closure. That's not how I operate. If you're going to make a decision, then stand up and explain to parents, we're going to have to close the school, but you're going to get something better than what you left. And that would have been the caveat to help this transition work. Remember, parents want the best for their kids.
Thank you. Mr. Sanchez?
The school board did speak to the community and multiple times during this process. It began in the spring of 2012, where it was brought up about the proposal of closing Crestmore and El Crystal. At that time, the board decided to put it on hold because of the people in the audience and the parents and the teachers felt that they could do other things to raise revenue to prevent school closure. And so it went through that process. We also, in Measure G, put on the ballot, which did not pass, would prevent school closure. That did not pass. And so it was brought back again to look at Crestmore, and we had a meeting here before the February vote, and we came to that conclusion, and the vote was 4-0-1. And the reason was to reduce combination classes from 21 to 8, as well as improve the quality of education for the students and support and sustained balanced enrollment.
Thank you. The next question. The district has budgeted over $600,000 for technology. However, over 3 fiscal years, this money has not been spent. What will you do to get the technology budget spent on classroom technology for the students? We'll begin with Mr. Zelnick.
Well, when you talk about, money being spent and committed to, I think the problem is that with this current board, there's no focus and there's no plan how to implement. We have some schools that may have more technology than other schools. The whole key issue is that, not being a member of the board, I really don't have an opportunity to study and listen to the study sessions about the budget and finances. But the reality is do we have the tools needed to educate our children? And that to me is what's most important. And if that means investing in it, then we need to invest on it. But I want to just go back to one point on the last question. I think you have to listen very clearly to Mr. Sanchez's comments. He said, quote, "The school board spoke to the parents." But apparently the school board didn't listen to the parents. And I promise you that not only will I speak with the parents, but I will listen to the parents and execute to the best of my ability to find that balance.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn?
The $600,000 has bothered me for quite a while. Knowing that it's out there and expecting often that it gets spent, at least in some way, throughout our district. I believe that the district was holding on to that money so that, well, economic uncertainties. They didn't know what they were going to get on a regular basis. And now that funding is going to be a little bit better, we can have a better plan to spend that money. And I think that, monitoring our technology plan and making sure that things get spent where they're supposed to get spent is one of my goals. And that's how I plan on getting that done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sanchez?
In regards to the technology plan, in the EC 17463.7, that we got $1 million for the technology plan. $400,000 of that was spent to upgrade the backbone throughout the district to provide the best bandwidth to all the schools. This was implemented in the first year of the technology plan, which was a 3-year. It's at the end of the second, going to the second to third year, and that there is $600,000 in terms of how it's going to be used. With the coming of the Common Core state standards, where technology is embedded in the curriculum, this will be used to upgrade those schools. It's going to be the desktops within the schools that will be critical because of the online testing that will take place in 2015.
Thank you. Mr. Marinos?
Obviously, with Common Core, this money is crucial to purchase the technology, and I would ask, what are we waiting for? Let's move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. For the next question, please describe what experience you have in managing either people, money, or facilities. Do you believe you have the resolve needed to fire an employee for unsatisfactory performance? We'll begin with Mr. Marinos.
For most of my working career, I was managing grocery stores, so I had a large labor budget every week that I was completely responsible for, and I was hiring people and letting people go. And it's obviously never a pleasant experience, but we have to hold people accountable, and that's what needs to be done. When questions are asked, questions need to be answered. And when the parents ask a question, they want a direct answer. So at the end of the day, it comes down to accountability of the people that are being asked the questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sanchez?
As a clinical professor of pathology at the University of California, San Francisco, I've been involved in a number of different educational committees and worked on various people with and looking at whether or not, in terms of evaluations, in terms of being honest and have integrity. But the board has only 3 functions, and the 3 functions is instruction, budget, and the only person that we have in terms of evaluation is the superintendent. We do not micromanage the district. That's why we hired the superintendent to carry out this. And this is the important thing that people have to realize, that the governing board is an advisory board, not an employment board.
Thank you. Mr. Zelnick?
Well, my career of 30 years, I've managed multi-million-dollar new car dealerships, service operations. I managed restaurant supply equipment companies at multi-million dollars. I've managed, I can't tell you how many people I've managed. I have a simple philosophy when it comes to management. You hire somebody that you hope is going to work out and be good. If it doesn't seem to work, you need to train them. You give them the training and the guidance to produce the product that you're looking for them to produce. If you can't do it, you go through progressive discipline, and then you take the appropriate steps. The key in this whole thing of management is being able to make a decision with the proper amount of information to handle it. I don't live in a world of government this and that and everything else. I've been at the ground zero where the workers have to come in, they produce their product, we make money, they may make money and go to head. So I've been well versed in budgets, salaries. I've worked on negotiated shops and non-union shops.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn?
I'm a chief stationary engineer in charge of a $100 million building that covers facilities. I've been a project manager in charge of 28 different projects at once with 8 or 10 different foreman electricians. That kind of covers handling of people. I believe that we need to have effective communication and discipline in our district, and some of that is the fault of the superintendent. Mr. Sanchez mentioned about what the board's responsibilities is. I kind of expected that and listed that the role of the board, which is the board shall work with the superintendent to fill its major responsibilities, including setting the direction for the district through a process that involves the community, parents, students, etc. I really think that referring back to our bylaws and fixing things is one of the things we need to do.
Thank you. Thank you. For the next question, how will San Bruno Park School District implement the Common Core standards? We'll begin with Mr. Sanchez.
It has already begun. It's been begun for the last 2 years with professional development of the teachers in association with the County of Education in San Mateo. So we're well into full swing. The other part of it that's embedded into the Common Core state standards is technology. As mentioned before, we've spent the money on the backbone of the district in terms of getting access, as well as now looking at what schools need additional desktops or laptops in order to accomplish this. And so that's what's been going forward. And as this year will be a transition year in full swing to accomplish this.
Thank you. Mr. Zelnick?
Well, I think professional development in this district is kind of strange because you can't take 3 days and have teachers show up and teach them what they need to know about this new curriculum standard. That's great that we're planning ahead. We're going to automate a system to be able to take the test online at the convenience of the state. The issue here today is that we need to take this program and implement it in a way which best suits the education quality of our children. Now, California State can tell us all this and all that, but the end point comes down to the teacher, the student, and the family. And in combination with those three, we have to support that unit through the new curriculum so that our parents can work with their children and the school can be there to support it, so we have a high degree of quality education. These kids today are going to take care of us when we're old and retired.
Thank you. Mr. Marinos?
The teachers seem extremely excited about Common Core, and hopefully it'll be an awesome thing for our district. But do I feel we're falling behind? I think that might be the case. For example, we're talking about the $600,000 today. That's just another prime example. But just hopefully we'll be able to move forward and pick up where we've fallen behind.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn?
Our Common Core state standards are already in our schools. We're already looking at, basically Common Core is not just learning It's teaching the kids how to apply that knowledge and how to think outside the box, think in groups, et cetera. We've got at El Crystal a STEM school that's thinking way outside the box, and we're doing a really great job there. I think what we need to focus on to make Common Core successful is listening to our principals and teachers more, and less to enforcing things on them. We need to bring it out of the teachers and principals and listen more. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. How does the school board give the superintendent a positive review and a raise when two schools are in program improvement and the district is in program improvement? We'll begin with Mr. Flynn.
I don't know how they do that. I disagree with that. I believe that, well, my first review of the superintendent, I was there for too short of a time to truly review the man. But I believe in giving everybody a fair shake, and at the time, I thought things were better or could have been better than they are. I believe that the district needs to truly improve, and I'm not sure if it's the superintendent or the school board that's the issue. I'm seeing issues in both places. So I blame the superintendent and the board for the schools falling behind. But I also think that the schools are doing really well under the circumstances and the funding that they have, and that we're looking on a bright future with better funding and a better formula coming forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marinos?
Since I'm not in those closed-door sessions, I obviously don't know exactly what's going on, but I do not understand that. I don't think the public understands that. I don't think the public understands how his contract got extended. All those things, people want answers, and there's never been a discussion. And I wish we would have a discussion about that, because for the next 4 years, for his contract, we can't continuously bring this up. That question is going to come up again and again, and it has to be put to rest. We have to have a discussion. What are we going to do? Let's move forward and take it from there.
Thank you. Mr. Zelnick?
I think what you have to realize is with the word contract, the superintendent signed on for a 3-year contract. Yet every year, the superintendent come back and ask for more money. Now, when I sign a contract for somebody to do something for me, they tell me what they're going to do, how long it's going to take, and I sign the contract and I pay them accordingly. This board, this past board, just doesn't make any sense. How is it that you continue to change his contract year after year after year, give him more money? Now, you may not see the money in his check, but it's the benefits. It's the plans that the district pays for that a lot of you don't know about. The clubs that he's involved in with. The point is, as in any good pro baseball player, football, they eventually run out of their usage in the club, they retire. It's time for Dr. Hutt to move on and let this district go forward with a new superintendent.
Mr. Sanchez?
There's misinformation in the question. Dr. Hutt has never gotten a raise since 2005. 2006, he voluntarily not take a raise compared to the teachers and all the other staff. He's been just like the teachers since 2007, 2013, has had the same salary and benefits. The clubs that you're referring to is basically those to the small school district association that's critical to have interaction and how to learn about to implement programs in this area of deficit issues in terms of supporting public education. The contract was extended because the board as a whole did not act on a clause that at 18 months you had to decide whether to allow it to be extended or not. And so the board, based on the evaluation that he had sustained, did very well.
Thank you. The next question. Do you believe you can be objective in making decisions that affect the district, considering all parties concerned rather than a single community, and using rationality rather than emotion? We'll begin with Mr. Marinos.
I have no doubt that I can be objective. I think the most important thing is getting all the facts together, talking to the right people, and making a sound judgment. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sanchez?
I think being very fair-minded and looking objectively as being on the school board, all the decisions and all the discussions that I've been involved with have always been based on one simple principle. All the decisions will be based on affecting all 2,763 students throughout this district. That's how many we have from transitional kindergarten to 8th grade. Those decisions have to always be based on that entire population of students to make the best educational experience for every student and support those teachers throughout the district that are in the interface and the volunteers and the parent involvement, which is critical to the success of our students in our district.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn?
Yes, I've sat on the foundation board and been able to handle things district-wide and without a lot of emotion, but I can't help but have emotion for our kids and understand that, you know, we need to do better for them and that we need more equity in our district. I have some numbers from last night's school board meeting. We approved PE contracts for Portola at $15,000, El Cristal at $18,000, and yet Bel Air at $6,000. That is not equity. We approved it unanimously, but I made sure that we removed that from the consent agenda and separated it and made sure that we knew that things aren't equal in this district and we need to improve that. Yes, I think that we can be objective. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Zelnick?
I hate to ask you to do this, but could you repeat it for me, please?
Surely. By the way, any candidate may ask at any time for a question to be repeated. Do you believe that you can be objective in making decisions that affect the district, that is considering all parties concerned rather than a single community, and using rationality rather than emotion?
Well, I think the balance of, as a board member, is to look at the complexity of each school is its own little community. Each district, the district supports all those schools, and each PTA or PTO raises their money and they spend it a certain way. I think what the point of the question is that are you open-minded to listen to what is going on and how money is being spent? And it's like buildings. This one might need a roof, but that one needs something. Equity is in the eye of the beholder. I think what we do deserve, that our children here in this district do deserve, is equity when it comes to the delivery of education. That is essential, but in some schools, that differs quite a bit. So equity meaning we need to teach our children to be self-sufficient going forward.
Thank you. For the next question, who creates the superintendent's goals? It appears his previous goals are activities being accomplished by the teachers and principals, and he takes the credit. Why is that allowed? We'll begin with Mr. Zelnick.
As a prior board member, the district has set goals, the board has set goals for the district. And the superintendent's responsibility was to implement those goals. What I always found disturbing is the goals changed every year. Even if you didn't make progress on some of the goals, those just went away and you went on to a new set of goals. This is the key point of what the Board of Trustees, board members are doing, is they need to define and make sure that they hold the superintendent accountable for the quality of the education and meeting the goals that the board has set out. And that hasn't happened. We have more schools in PI status. We've been deficit spending for years. And I don't think the board ever made a directive that says we want a deficit spend. No, they want a balanced budget. And yet that hasn't even come about. So when you look at the goals being set, they're not realistic.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Flynn?
I actually have the role of the board in front of me, and I'll read it to you. Setting the direction for the district through a process that involves community, parents, students, staff, and is focused on student learning and achievement. So setting these goals is something that the board should do together, and I don't believe it's been done, at least properly, in the past. And I think we need to work on that as things move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sanchez?
In terms of goal setting, the community has been involved. We've had study sessions each year in terms of goal setting. A particular goal would be picked by each of the board members, and as well as get input from the community and parents. In the last 2 years, the same goals were to be maintained, which student achievement, as well as physical solvency and responsibility, as well as continuing and retaining and attracting the best possible teachers and staff to provide the best possible education. And so Dr. Hutt does not take the credit. On the opposite, he's very considerate and understands the hard work of every individual in the district. There's only 2 people that really know Dr. Hutt the best, and that's Kevin Martinez and myself, because in the last 4 years, every week I've met with him to discuss policy issues and what are the direction of the district and the importance of all parties involved.
Thank you. Mr. Marinos?
Yeah, I just follow up with Dr. Sanchez. We just meant that just 2 people know him well. I would like all the students to know him well. I would like to see him. I would like all the students, when they see him, they know, they recognize him. And when it comes to what we're speaking about, again, here again tonight, we're discussing the superintendent. It's obvious this community wants to have a discussion, but the board keeps on pushing us back on certain people. And we need to discuss this, and I think after that we can move forward as a district. Thank you.
Thank you. For the next question, as you know, parental involvement is a key part of LCAP. How can we improve this in our district? We'll begin with Mr. Sanchez.
The district in the last meeting in September approved committees that's addressing, looking at the participation, parent involvement for the with the local control accountability plan, entrepreneur committee, as well as parent involvement and liaison committees. And this is part of the importance of this role in getting various members of the communities, from city council members, from Rotary Club, Lions Club, parents, retirees, retired teachers. So all the stakeholders have to be involved in this process, and it's being implemented. And that is being implemented not only in this district, but across all the over 1,000 districts within the state. And this is an ongoing process in the input. The challenge will be for the community to step up and to participate.
Thank you. Mr. Zelnick?
You know, we talk about getting the community involvement. That's what it kind of boils down to. And there was an education summit, I think, last Saturday. Other than local politicians, there was maybe 3 or 4 parents there. You got to ask yourself, why just 3 or 4? You got to also look at the point of this new process. Well, they got to form the committees. They got to do all these things. Why? To get the state money and federal money. That's just the bottom line. Now, as many of us know that have sit on committees before, you sit there to fulfill a purpose, and they don't listen. So what are all these committees? These committees are just mandated to make parents feel happy and warm that their voice is being heard, but you know what? You got to have somebody to listen. And I think in today, this community has a chance to put 3 new board members on the board that will promise to listen and to work in the best interest of their child's education.
Thank you. Mr. Marinos?
We all know that it's always very difficult to get people involved. We see that at our school board meetings, we see that at other events, there's always going to be a core of parents that are going to be involved. But yes, it would like to be nice to get everybody involved and make that group bigger. I don't think that'd be that easy to do, but it's something to work on. But their ideas need to be listened to. And as far as Chuck was just discussing about the committees, I would completely agree with that we need to go from the board to the people and take it from there. All these committees, we talk and we do all these things, and then at the end of the day, the board does something completely different. Thank you.
Mr. Flynn?
I've been involved in PTAs and school and the Education Foundation for 12 years. I agree with my two predecessors that the issue isn't the parental involvement. It's that they feel that they're not listened to, and that things aren't being done the way that the public wants them to be done. Committees are felt as a waste of time. You have to sign up forms. Things have gone on in school board meetings where you have to sign up to be able to speak. We're discouraging the community when we need to encourage the community. We need to listen more. We need to attract them. We need to have more events where we can all get together and listen. And we really need to listen to the community and act on what they want rather than what we think they want. We need to listen. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Why did the district evacuate both Crestmore and Portola when there were gas leaks, but Bel Air children were not evacuated? We'll begin with Mr. Marinos.
I was down there Friday morning when they had their, I'm going to call it the town hall, where Dr. Hutt was there, Mr. Eichmann was there, PG&E was there, and no one would take responsibility. No one. And all the parents in the audience they were just upset that they weren't notified, and all they wanted was someone to say, "We're sorry." No one said that. And they just felt they were treated like second-class citizens, and exactly what that came up. The people in the parents knew about Crestmore being evacuated, Portola. They wanted why their school wasn't. They wanted information, and the information should have been there quick and fast, and not wait a few days until they got the information. That was the whole problem. The information was not given to them. Maybe if it was given to them immediately, they would have had a different opinion. But I was at that meeting on Friday morning, and the parents were upset because, like I said, no information was given to them, and no one would take responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sanchez?
I was at that meeting as well, but I was there for the entire meeting. Mr. Marinos came there 20 minutes at the latter part. It went from 8:32 to 9:42. And during that meeting, the district and and PG&E took responsibility for what was going on. The difference was that in this case, PG&E came out within 13 minutes of being notified by the principal where there was a gas leak. They had been there before, and they had not been able to find out because there's a lot of wind down there, and their instruments are going to have issues with it. But they did find the leak, and they shut off the valve to that right away. And then, based on that, with PG&E, the superintendent, and the site administrator, they decided that everyone was safe, and that's why they were not evacuated, compared to the other situations that were occurring at Crestmore and Portola when it occurred, or Rollingwood, I should say. There were bigger issues there that were resolved.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn?
I attempted to bring this up yesterday's school board meeting and it was shot down. I tried to put this item on the agenda so the school board could discuss this, and it wasn't allowed to be brought up. I'm trying to get the board to be accountable for what goes on in the district, and it seems that I'm being fought. I really think that what went on, there were a lot of issues. I've asked for it to be brought at the next board meeting so that we can discuss those issues. I think, as I mentioned in my opening statement, that things aren't the same throughout the district, that there's at least a feeling that different schools are handled in different ways. That needs to be addressed. I saw a lot of the communication through the whole thing. I went to Bel Air, I saw the issues, and I agree it could have been managed much better. Things were waited upon when they didn't need to be. The school was not in danger.
Thank you.
Because it was only an hour. Thanks.
Mr. Zelnick?
You know, the school district took appropriate actions in 2 occasions, and as far as the public's concerned, failed on the 3rd. You can sit there and tell the community of parents that we're sorry, yeah, we didn't do this, but we didn't feel this or that. There should be a standard plan. When I was on the school board, we had a policy and procedure manual. You smell gas, you do something about it. And where was the policy? Where was the leadership? That's what you got to ask yourself is, Why isn't there a plan? If a plane goes down at SFO, there's a plan. If there's a fire in San Bruno, there was a plan to bring people in from other jurisdictions way down the peninsula to come up and help. There's a plan. Why did this district fail? Because, yeah, they got through it this time, but maybe next time we won't be that lucky. And so you got to ask yourself, where's the leadership? And the leadership's not there.
Thank you. Let me give the candidates just a short break to take a breath. And I'd like to give you a little commercial for the League of Women Voters. We are a nationwide nonprofit organization, and our primary mission is to involve citizens in their own government by means of education and by voter service, in the sense that we provide candidates, forums, pros and cons, and general election information. Please consult our website, smartvoter.org. You will find all kinds of information on local elections, including if the candidates have submitted their own information. It will be up there, as well as you can find your own polling place and your personalized ballot. So it's a great resource come election time. That's smartvoter.org. So now that we've had a chance to catch our breath, we'll begin again with questions. Thank you. Why do you believe education bond measures fail in San Bruno? And we'll begin this time with Mr. Zelnick.
That's a good question. The first time that recently that the school district put on a bond, we opposed it, and it failed. The second time we put on a bond, and all along we've said it has to have specificity. There's no dreaming. It's got to be specific, it's got to be accountable, it's got to be accurate and truthful. We didn't see that in the last bond, but we didn't even bother to go against it. We just let it ride. And the voters were smart enough to say, hey, you're missing the key components: accountability, specificity, and trust. Why do I think that can't be passed? There is no trust for the current members sitting on the board, Pat excluded, because of the fact that with all the mismanagement of money that has gone on for years, deficit spending, would you trust $30 million, $45 million to this board? A lot of people said no. I think I can help get that passed if it's appropriate.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn?
It all boils down to trust in the district and trust of the board and the superintendent. There isn't trust in the board and the superintendent. There isn't trust in the district. I believe that I generate, or at least have had, trust from our community to me. The reason I'm running is because many people have asked me to run for school board. I got appointed and I got permission from my wife to run. And I'm honest about that.
That was a key.
That's a key. And I believe that brings a lot of trust. That really we need to reach out to community, and it needs to come from them that we need a bond. It needs to come from them that we need a parcel tax. And we need to communicate what we're going to do with that money very well and be accountable. And I've been accountable in everything I've done over the last 12 years. And I'm not sure that everyone here can say that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sanchez?
I am accountable as a board member, and I'm accountable in terms of the 2,700 students in the district. The district has been accountable at every level. There's never been one penny in the district's history of its budget being misused, because we have internal audit, external audit, the county audit, the state audit. And not one time has this school district ever been accused of mismanagement of funds. In terms of the Measure O failing, it was specific. It says it was going to go after the use of money to Phase 2 of Parkside, to get rid of the science building and put up a new one, a new gym, a new auditorium, theater, new offices for administration. That's what it was stated for. And the public decided otherwise. But there's always going to be another opportunity.
Thank you. Mr. Marinos?
There are so many great things about our school district. I speak about that all night. but I was involved in Measure J, and unfortunately, when I was talking to people, even if their children were long gone from the school district or they didn't have any in the school district, all I heard was the negative things that are out there. And that's because I believe when something goes out there, the school board, there's nothing to counterbalance it. And we have to get out there and put out the right information and take it from there. But a bond or a parcel tax, it has to work the other way. The people that are going to pay the taxes, the parents, they're the ones that need to push for it. It can't come from the board on down because it doesn't look like it's in everybody's best interest. But when it comes from the parents on up, I believe it looks a lot better. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, for the next question, we are undergoing a lot of changes with LCFF, LCAP, and CCSS. We need stability to implement these changes. Will you work with other board members and Dr. Hutt to do so, or must we revisit old issues over and over again? What will you do to move us forward? We'll begin with Mr. Flynn.
Common Core state standards, local control accountability plan, and local control funding formula are key for our future. Since I've been on the board, I don't believe there's been any mixed votes. I think that we've started with at least getting consensus well throughout the board meetings. We've gotten the work done at least in a better manner and more professionally. We've gotten some things out and learned. The board review of itself has happened, and it's brought out information and feelings from different board members, and they've learned to respect each other a little more. I'm not sure about the future, but all I can say is I've worked with boards for a very long time, and hopefully I can help this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marinos?
I believe we need to take all the recommendations from the teachers and the principals, and then as we come together as a board, I believe that's something that we all can be cohesive about and make this happen. And I have no doubt at the end of the day, when it comes to something as important as this, the right decision will be made.
Thank you. Mr. Zelnick?
I think under these new, primarily under the new funding model, what you have to have is you have to have the trust. Yeah, the state's going to give us more control, more power, more money. But what the state doesn't tell you is they're not going to give you money for books. They're not going to give you money for this or money for that, because you get it all in one lump sum and you have to manage it. Now you got to ask yourself, with a track record that this board has had over the past 4 years of constantly deficit spending in the amount, a substantial amount of money that they have in debt, and we have teachers being furloughed, do you really trust the current board to be able to step up to that and help? I think it's time for 3 new faces, a new superintendent, so we can get this thing off to the right start at the beginning, that we will be successful and we will be fiscally responsible, which means no deficit spending.
Thank you. Mr. Sanchez?
I think it's important, in order for this new collaborative approach to education, that everyone becomes involved. It cannot be a passive process, because it's important to show the collaborative approach as leadership and governance, as well as the students, because we're all part of this process. It's critical to understand that this district has always had deficit spending, even since a previous administration or governance boards. But what is being at this point, and I've brought this up at meetings, is that we have an opportunity now to get rid of the $3.2 million of deficit spending this year. And we have to do it, and we have to do it in a strategic way to make sure that we accomplish the goals that is asked of us of this new funding model and accountability plan. And it becomes very important to elicit everyone's participation. It's a team approach.
Thank you. For the next question, would you furlough teachers and staff to cover budget shortages? We'll begin with Mr. Sanchez.
In the fall of last year, the district undertook, with the board's approval, of a task force of sustainability. Because of the constant loss of money and the increasing costs and expenditures in the district, like special education and other costs that have gone up, this year it's $4.3 million. And so with this, it's been critical to look at all these pieces of the puzzle in terms of looking at how do we approach it. In this task force, there were 51 items that were looked at. One of them included furlough days. And so it was important to get ahead of the deficit spending and do that with 5 furlough days and with the agreement with the teachers at the end of the year so it would not disrupt the entire year.
Thank you. Mr. Zelnick?
Think about it, 5 furlough days. How much educational time is that for each student in this district? If you weren't deficit spending for the years past, you wouldn't be where you are today that you're furloughing teachers' pay. Open the newspaper, get on your computer, see how many districts around us are furloughing their teachers. They're not, because they stepped up and they made the appropriate cuts when they needed to be able to stay solvent. This wild spending that this district's been on is now come to a head, and there's only 2 groups of people that it affects: the teachers and the students. We are never going to be able to make up the time lost for those students for the lack of hours that they would have in education, because a board over the past 3.5 years has continued to put this district in financial disarray. And one of the candidates here tonight promised fiscal solvency 4 years ago. Doesn't look like it now.
Thank you. Mr. Marinos?
Of course, the easy answer is no, but we have to look back that this problem didn't start overnight. This problem has been starting for years, and now it's got to a point where something needs to be done. At this point, we need to see where the new funding is going to lead us, and we'll take it there when the new funding starts. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn?
I'll do what I have to do to balance the budget. We need to have a balanced budget. As Mr. Zelnick said, we've been left with a tough situation due to the past. And I believe the district's been behind the ball in cuts. They've always been deficit spending, and they needed to balance the budget. We need a balanced budget. Once that happens and things move up from there, we can talk about, restoring furlough days. We can talk about raises for our teachers. We can talk about implementing, books for our kids, Common Core standard stuff, all of these items that we need to address. But one of the most important things we need is a balanced budget. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this will probably be our last question, and then we'll have the closing statements from the candidates. This question is, in your opinion, has the current superintendent helped the school district? We'll begin with Mr. Marinos.
This is our 4th question about the superintendent tonight. It's obvious people want to talk about this, and there needs to be a discussion. And when it comes to the superintendent, I can talk all night about things he did and things he didn't do. But at the end of the day, there needs to be more communication from the superintendent. And he's the face of our district, and he needs to be out there explaining things. And then we can take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sanchez?
In terms of, can you repeat the question again, please?
Yes. In your opinion, has the current superintendent helped the school district?
Yes, and he has. Since his hire for the last 12 years, he's helped raise the API scores within the district. Last year, 2012, there was only 1 school below 800. Because of the increase to the higher level of standard, there was a drop, and not only in this district, but many other districts that have been doing well in terms of API scores. What has been that a result of? He's been in charge and involved with ability to hire the best and retain quality teachers and specialists for this district. And that's what's helping the district move forward and be quite accomplished in terms of what's going on. And if you compare our district to others, it's reflected in that data objectively.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn?
Has the current superintendent helped the district? Possibly. Is he doing everything he should? Probably not. Could things improve? Absolutely. I'm looking at the superintendent as an employee, and we need to address him as an employee. Things could need to improve, but communication needs to improve as well. It's not just the superintendent that's part of the issue. It's the board. It's the board that has over-trust in the superintendent. They believe in him overly much. They think that that it's all okay, and I really don't think it is. And I think the communication with the superintendent and the community and the board needs to improve, and that they, they need to treat him more like an employee and less like a friend. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Zelnick?
The litmus test for the superintendent is really clear. This is based on 4 years, the past 4 years of the board's term. Are we better off today than we were 4 years ago? And each parent, each community member, whether you have kids in the school or not, are our schools in San Bruno better today than they were 4 years ago? And the answer is absolutely not. This district has deficit spend. Henry can talk about the whole issue of we have a balanced budget. It's at the end of the year when they figure out the money and then they chop it all off. That's not a balanced budget. That's living with deficit spending and then trying to cover your tracks. The point is the superintendent has outlived his usefulness in this district. It's time for a fresh start with 3 new board members. It's time for a new superintendent, and it's a time to set a course for a positive interaction with the community, the parents, and the board. And it all starts with this upcoming election.
Thank you. So while the candidates gather their thoughts for their closing statements, I'll just remind you that the election is November 5th. You will have the opportunity to vote for 3 candidates for the governing board. And I'm sure you'll exercise your vote, and hopefully you'll also bring your friends and neighbors to vote as well. I'd like to thank the member of the audience who very kindly lettered our name tags, which we thought were here and weren't. So someone, could you wave your hand? Just thank you. We appreciate your leaping into the breach and helping us get some nice, neat name tags printed. I understand that at least one person's going to take it home for a souvenir, so that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I'd like to thank San Bruno Cable for taping the program this evening, and I want to remind the cable company and the candidates as well, if you do use the tapes, please use them only in their entirety, not in piecemeal fashion. So with that, I believe we're ready to have the closing statements from every candidate, and again, we are going in reverse order of the opening. So we'll begin with Mr. Flynn.
My information's on smartvoter.org. Please go there. I registered, and I thank you, League of Women Voters, for all of the work you do and everything that's going on. You've heard a lot of interesting answers tonight. I hope that you've listened and paid attention, and that you vote well. I think that that we've had some good responses, and I agree with many of them. I think that the Educational Summit was kind of an indicator of what's going on in our district. We had some a lot of administrators show up that were upset because they weren't consulted. We had 3 parents show up when we needed to embrace the community better. That indicates exactly what's going on in our district. We need to reach out better, and we need to do that through the PTAs, PTOs, the parents that are involved. We need to get the word out, and we need the people that are interested in their child's education to come forward and tell us what we need to do. And then we need a board that'll listen and a board that'll act. And I hope that you vote for a board that'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Patrick Flynn. And now we'll hear from John Marinos.
I can just assure you that your child, I will fight for your child as much as I would fight for my own child. That's how I look at this. That's what I think we're missing from the school board. We're certainly not missing that from the teachers, and we're certainly not missing that from the principals. We're not missing that from the parents. I believe from the school board is where we're missing that. And I will assure you that I will be there. I will let you listen if how many school boards people have been to in this room. You need to be listened to. When you want to speak, you should be able to speak. When you come to a school board meeting, there hopefully once a month, you should be able to speak. Not some rule says you shouldn't. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sanchez, Henry Sanchez?
What you've gotten from 4 years from me coming in and the promises I made, I've kept. I've gave a solid commitment to the 2,700 students now in the district and to the teachers and the endorsements that I've gotten from then and now. And I appreciate, and I would like to thank all the people that had endorsed me, from the Democratic Party to the Labor Council and to the Democratic Stonewall Committee and others, and Supervisor David Pine. They have supported me and have looked at my leadership and what I've done in the district, and I'm proud because I've also taught many of the students that parents have in this audience and out there at Parkside, at Rollingwood, and as well as Crestmore. And in that, I know exactly what the staff have to do and what they're doing, and we're very proud as a board of the teamwork of the parents, the volunteers, the community members, the staff, the teachers. Everyone has made this an outstanding district, and I want to continue to make this an outstanding district, and I think I can because of my educational background and my commitment to the quality of education as an educator for over 30 years, from adult learners, now involving students at any age. This has been something I've really enjoyed and worked with. Even though we've had challenges, we can overcome in this community because that's the fiber of this community. We saw the Glenview explosion. My house was only 8 houses away from it, and I didn't know if my children were going to be alive or not. And so adversity is something that we overcome, innovate, and move forward. And that's what I'll provide and continue as a governing board member of the San Bruno Park School District. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr.
And
Zelnick?
Mr. Flynn described earlier, a board is a group of 5 people in our district that meet together to establish policies and procedures, goals and objectives to moving the quality of education forward. I think you all have to find it very ironic that we have Mr. Sanchez and Mr. Martinez meeting on a regular basis with Superintendent Hutt. Why is that? It's never happened in the past. Is there some hidden agenda that's going on? Parents feel that the board is not trustworthy, and that's a perfect indicator right there. But let me present to the community and the members here tonight what is at stake here. You have an opportunity. You have 2 prior board members who are no longer on the board. Mr. Flynn was appointed to the board. Mr. Prescott, after his years of great service, is stepping away from the board. And so what you have is you have 1 incumbent and 3 new people wanting to help propel this district into the future. So this is the most golden opportunity this community has to place a check mark in the box next to Pat Flynn, John Marino, and Chuck Zelnick. With that, you're not going to end up with an old regime. We can work well with Kevin, and we can work well with Jennifer. Jennifer, I talk a lot all the time anyway. So the whole key is, do you want the same distrust, or do you want a clean slate and go forward? You, the public, are getting your ballots in the mail. Absentees and elections coming up. Take a chance and go forward with a clean slate, and please vote for Pat, John, and myself. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, and I guess we're going to sign off.
Soon we will. Thank you. That was Charles Zelnick. I'll just take 1 more minute to invite all of you to join the League of Women Voters. We would welcome additional members, and we have monthly general meetings. We also have continue with our voter service activities such as candidates forums and pros and cons, and you're all very welcome to join. Please do. With that, I'd like to thank all of you for being here, and thank San Bruno Cable again for taping the proceedings, and let's all thank all the candidates for coming out this evening. Thank you.
Good luck.
So thank you and good night.